Hello, good afternoon. It is 2:30. Welcome to the School Safety Town Hall. We'll wait about a minute, let folks join, get settled, and then we'll share reminders about the Q&A feature and how today will be structured, and then some housekeeping items as well. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Costello. I'm the School Safety Center Specialist with the Utah State Board of Education and School Safety Center. Welcome to our second School Safety Town Hall. We're excited to have everyone here today and everyone joining us. We're in Zoom, and if you have any questions throughout our town hall today, please use that Q&A feature to ask your questions. We will have a live Q&A here at the end of our town hall, and we will be facilitating those questions through the Q&A feature. So as a reminder, any questions throughout today, please use that Q&A as opposed to placing questions inside the chat. There's no requirement to submit your name today or change your name to your LEA. Just sit back and relax and have fun today at our School Safety Town Hall. I'll facilitate all those questions at the end. We'll have about 10 to 20 minutes. And then a simple reminder to check your spam folders or any junk folders for emails from school safety programs at schools.utah.gov. That is the email address that is shared between the entire School Safety Center, and that is the email address that will be sending any communications about school safety to the field. For example, there was an email that went out about today's town hall with a registration link asking folks to register to join us today. So if you don't remember seeing those emails, go ahead and double check your spam or your junk folders. Again, welcome. This is our second School Safety Town Hall for this school year. We're super glad to have you in the room with us today. And I'm going to turn it over to Chantel Coda.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today in joining us on the very important topic of school safety. My name is Chantel Coda, and I am the Director of School Safety and Student Services for the Utah State Board of Education. We have an exciting agenda for you today. We are going to reintroduce you to the School Safety Center and the awesome work that they've been doing to support all of you in your important roles in the school. We've had a lot of questions come in about the armed and trained school personnel, and so we're going to be spending some time in this town hall going over what that looks like, what that could look like in your school, resources that you may have to support that, and what it looks like to request funding and other items for those types of personnel. So that includes the school resource officer, school guardian, and or armed school security officer. And then we'll go over a frequently asked questions document. And then, of course, this time is for you, for your questions. Again, a reminder to use that Q&A feature as we go through to make sure that we understand the questions that you want asked. And then we will turn it over to all of you to hear your thoughts, comments, and questions from the field. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Rhett Larson. He is the coordinator for the School Safety Center.
Good afternoon, everyone. And again, thank you for being here with us. We do want to remind everyone that we do provide options for training. Some of those options are threat assessment, particularly the Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines by Dr. Dewey Cornell. We also offer training by the I Love You Guys Foundation, the Standard Response Protocol and Standard Reunification Method. You request those training through our training request portal, and you can access that at the Utah State Board of Education website, or at the bottom of our email addresses, we have a QR code for where you can request training. We also want to make everyone aware that the School Safety Needs Assessment summary form and the application for alternatives that is embedded within the School Safety Needs Assessment summary form is available and will be available until the end of December. Also, we are looking to release a school safety and support grant in the near future, so please watch for that. In addition to that grant, we will provide a webinar to provide technical assistance and support, and we hope to get that grant application out in the very near future. Also, just a reminder that we have created a school safety playbook. As policymakers in Utah continue to focus on the important topic of school safety, and especially this last legislative session, we put together a playbook to help you with implementing the new school safety initiatives. And as Ashley pointed out, if you have any additional questions or need some additional support, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. I'll now turn it over to Jeremy Barnes.
Hello, my name is Lieutenant Jeremy Barnes. I am with the Utah Department of Public Safety, Division of State Security, and also the School Safety Liaison with the Utah School Safety Center. I'm going to touch on the Armed and Trained School Personnel Overview that is obviously referred to more commonly as the Guardian component of HB 84. The requirement is that an LEA shall ensure that every school has at least one of the following: personnel physically present at the school's campus while school is in session. This is schools in session is time of instruction, or also referred to as bell to bell. So each school needs to have a school resource officer, a school guardian, or armed security officer. And I'll highlight each one of those now. The SRO itself is a law enforcement officer who contracts with, or whose law enforcement agency contracts with, an LEA to provide law enforcement services for the LEA. This is done through through the memorandum of understanding between the school district, the LEA, and the law enforcement agency, having that understanding of roles, responsibilities, and joint services provided for school-based law enforcement. The important component of this is that these individuals have to be sworn and certified. So they are sworn law enforcement officers and certified through the state of Utah, sworn in by a department or a law enforcement agency. The school guardian is an employee of the school. So, and we're going to cover a lot of the frequently asked questions later, but these individuals are existing employees. We're not seeing a whole lot of, well, we're not seeing, this is not the school guardian is not an employment role. It is an ancillary duty to an already existing employee. It cannot include a principal, teacher, or individual whose primary responsibilities require presence in the classroom to teach, care, or interact with any of the students. They have to have a duty that would not require them to be in that classroom. They have to have a concealed carry permit. They have to go through a mental screening, level C provision, fit to carry is what we've been referring to them as, and they have to complete the school guardian training program. That program will be developed and implemented by the local or by the county in which that LEA resides. And I'll cover the selection of the school guardian at a later time, so we can move to the next slide. The Armed School Security Officer. These are individuals, they're not law enforcement officers, but they are employed by a private security company. They must have a valid concealed carry permit, and they have to also complete the school guardian training program. The responsibilities of these individuals would also be engaged with a memorandum of understanding between the LEA and the private security company. And then I will hand it off to Ashley.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. So Jeremy just went through the 3 different types of armed and trained school personnel that is expected to be at each school throughout our state. So again, at least one of those individuals at each school is what is in House Bill 84, the school safety amendments. However, we do understand that LEAs differ throughout our state, schools differ throughout our state. So we do want to remind folks that there is an application for alternatives. And there are 5 total alternatives. However, these 2 specifically here, the school guardian program, and then contracts between an LEA and a contract security company for an armed school security guard. Those are 2 alternatives that schools individually, I'm sorry, let me correct that. The school guardian program is a school level alternative that a school principal or a school individually can apply for an alternative via that application for alternatives Qualtrics form that's in and within the school safety needs assessment summary form. It's the same Qualtrics form. And then an LEA can apply for an alternative to that contracts piece. So you could see those sections listed there. And then when schools apply for any type of alternatives, a quick reminder that in approving or denying the application, the state security chief, so Chief Pennington here on our call today, he will consider the factors that impact the school or the LEA, including but not limited to population size, staffing needs or capacity, geographic location, general demonstration of need for an alternative to the requirements, and then lastly, beginning next fiscal year, any previous year's application. So the frequently asked questions, Chantel had mentioned earlier, we do have a resource document that we are finalizing here, and we will have ready to share with the field by the end of this week. So once it's ready, it will be uploaded to our website, and it will also be uploaded to the School Safety and Security Specialist Canvas course underneath the resource modules. But we will take some time today to go through some of those frequently asked questions, and I'm going to send it over to Michelle for the first one.
Thank you, Ashley. Michelle Knight here, the Threat and Crisis Response Support Specialist at USBE. Our first question is, what is the compliance timeline for LEAs regarding the implementation? Some LEAs have already started the implementation process. The objective is to have armed and trained school personnel fully in place by the 2025-2026 school year.
Thanks, Michelle. And then the next question that may be frequently asked is, what is the campus area that armed and trained school personnel must be able to respond to? Sorry, let me back up. I read the previous slide. What is the time frame that LEAs must have at least one armed and trained school personnel on campus? And so LEAs just need to ensure at least one armed and trained school personnel is physically present on campus while school's in session. And we usually phrase this as like bell to bell. The next question that is frequently asked is, what is the campus area that armed and trained school personnel must be able to respond to? And so for this one, armed and trained school personnel must be able to respond to incidents throughout the entire school campus, including all areas under the school's jurisdiction that are accessible to students during the school day. So for example, some things to consider is, where do students have access to different buildings, right? Especially if you're a multi-building campus. Is there an adjacent campus is it like they're building across a baseball field that's not separated by a physical barrier or a major multi-lane roadway or a divided highway? What's the distance between the buildings, and little things to think about as the response time.
What if there is no funding for a school guardian or a school resource officer, or if there aren't any staff willing to become the school guardian? So like we mentioned previously, the statute mandates that every public school have either an SRO, a school guardian, or an armed security officer. That is the statute, that is the expectation at every school throughout Utah. However, going back to those applications for alternatives, an LEA or a school may apply for an alternative to the state security chief, so Chief Pennington and his team, based on the factors that we had listed earlier. And if you would like more information on the application for alternatives process, that is there's an extensive section in the Utah School Safety Playbook version 1, specifically page 27. And that was a link that Melissa put in the chat earlier in the town hall. So feel free to refer to that playbook if you want additional details on that application for alternatives process.
Next question, will a memorandum of understanding MOU for SROs be provided? The answer on this is yes. The School Safety Center model MOU for SROs is available and on the Utah School Safety Center resources page, but there is going to be an updated version which will be expected in FY26. MOUs, the best practice is to have those reviewed on an annual basis and updated every 3 to 5 years. The LEA and the law enforcement agency must jointly develop the MOU and its contents. So The School Safety Center has developed a model MOU, which can provide that the blueprint or the baseline information, but each individual LEA would need to create their own MOU for their specific demographic in those regions they provide services to.
What qualifications must a school employee meet to be eligible for the school guardian role? To be considered for the school guardian role, a school employee, so that's going to be first. This individual should already be an employee of the school, and they must meet several requirements outlined in the playbook that I was just referring to a few moments ago. This information is on page 12 if you're interested in going back to review it. But the qualifications are they must obtain a valid concealed firearm permit. They must pass a CFP search. They must pass the mental health screening, as Scott will talk about the fit to carry assessment. And then lastly, they must pass the school guardian training program. And that program is being provided by Chief Pennington and his team and the county security chiefs.
If the principal or a teacher cannot be a school guardian, who is able to fill the role? Any school employee except the principal or teacher can be a school guardian. The bill intends for the school guardian not to have the primary duty of teaching or caring for students. As Ashley mentioned, an LEA may apply for an alternative to Chief Pennington based on many factors, and you can find more information on how to apply for alternatives in the Utah School Safety Playbook on page 27.
What does the school guardian training program include? So the actual curriculum for the school guardian program is protected law enforcement sensitive information. And so anyone other than attendees going through that program are not eligible to receive what that actual curriculum entails. But to answer the question in kind of a more broad perspective is the state security chief has created and disseminated the curriculum to those county security chiefs. This is a 28-hour curriculum and is a minimum standard. So the state security chief has given that baseline, and the county security chiefs can augment that. They can do more training if they want, but they have to include everything in that basic level or the basic 28-hour curriculum. They can always go above. The minimum standard, the components that includes are training on applicable laws, firearm safety, tactical casualty care, standard response protocol, and qualification exercises for the individuals going through the program.
Scott Ayer, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Substance Use and Mental Health. The next several questions I'm going to answer are in regard to the mental health screening component of the Guardian program. So one of the questions we get is, does the school guardian need to undergo a psychological eval? And the answer is yes, they do. According to the statute, the school employee who volunteers as the guardian must complete that mental health screener. This has already been selected by the state security chief in collaboration with the Office of Substance Use and Mental Health, and that is known as the Fit to Carry assessment. So what is the Fit to Carry assessment? That is new to the guardians. What do they need to pass in order to commence their duties? So this Fit to Carry assessment is a new term in our state. It's a new assessment that is designed specifically for the school guardians. It's similar to what law enforcement goes through as far as their psychological evals, but it's been condensed down basically to streamline it and to make sure it's appropriate for the duties that the guardian will be taking on. And that Fit to Carry has 4 components to it. It is a required personality assessment, a symptoms screener, an in-person interview, and a reference check of at least one personal reference as provided by the school guardian. Qualifications must a mental health professional have to administer the Fit to Carry assessment? Well, because of the first requirement, which is the personality assessment, that requires a level C qualification. A psychologist will need to take this on. The fit to carry assessment must be administered by a professional who is licensed to practice in Utah, holding a doctorate degree in psychology education or a closely related field, and this is a key component, and has the formal training in ethical administration, scoring, and interpretation of clinical assessments. If you're wondering who to access and where to go for this, I would start by looking at who your local law enforcement uses in order to screen for their new cadets that they bring in to their workforce. I would tap into that resource first, and there are a number throughout our state, and we're doing our best to compile a list so that we know who wants to participate in this and also who is familiar with these tests. And we will provide that out to the field as soon as we have that compiled. Okay, so how much does the fit to carry assessment cost and who pays for it? Well, the answer is LEAs are responsible for paying for the fit to carry assessment. And we've heard initial costs in the estimate of anywhere between $350 to $600.
State security chief will track, or excuse me, what should LEAs know about school guardian confidentiality? These are important components because there are some legal consequences for sharing the identity of guardians. The state security chief will track each school guardian by collecting their name, contact information, and photographs. This information will be accessible to all law enforcement officers in the state. The school guardian's identity is private and only available to state security chief, school administrators, other school safety personnel, local law enforcement, and the county security chiefs. Sharing the identity of the school guardian with anyone not listed above is a Class B misdemeanor. The LEA should work with the school guardian, school employees, and systems to ensure their confidentiality. So sharing of that information is punishable by prosecution. So another big concern that we have, and we've heard about it going throughout the state, is how will the school guardian be identified in a real emergency and not be mistaken as a threat? In law enforcement, we are trained from the very beginning not to engage with the individuals wearing vests, and those are safety parameters put in place for training purposes. So the best way to identify who those people are at the school level would be, as far as the guardians, would be a vest. And so in collaboration with the School Safety Center and the School Safety and Security Task Force, the state security chief has developed a unique and non-duplicatable identifier for school guardians. This identifier will be issued during the school guardian training programs. And how will school guardians receive the stipend? State security chief keeps a record of each school guardian as outlined in the previous slides. That includes their name, contact information, and photographs. The stipend will be paid directly to the guardian from the Department of Public Safety. Brett?
Sorry for that, it wouldn't let me unmute. So will USBE provide a sample contract for school guardians that outlines their responsibilities and addresses the issue of liability? No, the LEA should develop any formal contracts in consultation with its legal team. From here, we're going to transition from our questions and answers that will be on the FAQ that will be shared through resources to all of you. And we're going to move into a live questions and answers. So please utilize the Q&A feature. And then I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, but just a reminder that you can also reach out to us at any time through school safety programs at schools.utah.gov. And I will turn it over to Ashley to facilitate our Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks, Rhett. I see a lot of questions about the guardians in the Q&A here. So Jeremy, I hope you're ready. Here we go. Will school guardians be trained only using a gun? Are there any other forms?
I'm confused on the context of that. The school guardian program is for a firearms training program. There are components of de-escalation and things like that in the platform too.
Awesome. Thank you. Can a school guardian purchase their own biometric safe rather than the school it belongs? Oh, so the safe belongs to the guardian. If the answer is yes, can it be installed and used for this purpose? If students visit this room often, can the safe be in that room?
As far as the biometric safe, that is going to be up to the LEA policies and procedures on that. For that individual LEA, it would be up to their policies and procedures. There's nothing in statute that outlines the proper installation of those biometric safes and the placement of those.
Awesome, thank you. Regarding concealment, is it body carry only? Can crossbody bag with a holster be used?
No, unless they have that on them at all times. So the only, if they're going to have the weapon concealed on them, it has to be concealed on their person. And if it is not directly on their person, it has to be in the safe. And so it cannot just be left in a bag, or if that bag is set down. And I would argue that it's not there's not a whole lot of people that wear bags the entire duration of the day, if they're not carrying something specific. And so that could be a telltale sign that they are carrying a firearm.
Jeremy, does the school guardian have to already have the concealed permit, or can they acquire it while in training?
No, they need to have it before.
Regarding the school guardian, would a classroom aide who rotates through several classes to provide support qualify for this position? They are not the primary adult in the classroom.
If their primary purpose is the safety and security of an individual in the classroom, then no. However, they could apply for an alternative in as it pertains to that. If they are a classroom aide, that their primary purpose is not for the safety and security of students and facilitating that classroom instruction, then they would be able to. But regardless, that individual could, or whatever the dynamic there, they could apply for an alternative.
Wonderful. The code law states that a school guardian cannot be a principal. Does this definition include an assistant principal in schools with multiple administrators?
That is a fantastic question. It is specifically outlined for the principal may not serve. And so if there is an assistant principal, they would be able to fall in line with the service of the guardian. The statute it limits to that principal position only.
If a school chooses a school guardian, are they required to have a backup when that employee calls in sick or is on vacation?
Yes. So there needs to be an armed school personnel coverage, bell to bell, or whenever instruction periods are taking place.
The alternative, here's some clarification. The alternative just means we are applying for an armed guard, which have been using the term armed officer rather than a school guardian and need funding help, correct? Can you clarify that miscommunication, Jeremy?
Can you reread that question, please?
So the alternative, so for example, if this school were to apply for an alternative, means that they are applying for an armed guard instead of a school guardian and need funding help.
Okay, so if I'm understanding the question correctly, it's going to be the difference between an armed security officer or armed security guard and a school resource officer. The important component there is that if you are applying for grant funding for armed security, whether or not we're saying officer or guard, that by statute it is armed security guard or armed school security guard. However, it is understood combination of language between guard and officer within the security profession. But when we're looking, if we're talking about a school resource officer, it is important that those individuals are referred to as sworn and certified. So sworn by a law enforcement agency and certified by the state of Utah, Peace Officer Standards and Training. to ensure that they are the school resource officer. You cannot have an armed security guard or an armed security officer fulfilling the role of an SRO.
Wonderful. However, if they have at least one of those three, they are following statute, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So there is no need to apply for an alternative if you have at least an SRO or a school guardian or an armed guard in your school.
That is correct. And as long as that is taking place for bell to bell, school in session, period of instruction time coverage.
Speaking of school in session and bell to bell, Jeremy, does that also include school activities and or sports games and other after school activities?
That does not. Anything after hours or after the school session, period of instruction, there is no requirement to have the armed school personnel.
Who is considered the LEA? Will the district be the LEA, or are individual LEAs at each school responsible to get an armed personnel for their school? I could take the first half of this. So when we talk about LEA, that is an acronym for Local Education Agency. For example, a school district is an LEA. The word LEA is the big umbrella for both school districts and also charter schools as well. So when we say LEA, if you're at a school district, that means someone at your school district level, a district administrator. So will the district be the LEA? Yes. Schools are not typically known as LEAs unless it is a one school charter organization. So when we talk about being responsible to get armed personnel for their schools, every school within a school district or every school within a charter is expected to have at least one of those armed personnels at their school from bell to bell. Jeremy, anything to add?
Ashley, that was fantastic.
Hey, thanks. All right, let's keep rolling here. We have 63 total. We will get to as many as possible, folks. Are all schools within the district expected to have armed and trained personnel? We've already answered that. We have an SRO that comes to our school a few times a week, Jeremy. I don't know if that technically covers what is required. Can you elaborate on that answer?
So if the SRO has specific times that they are at the specific school outlined in the MOU, that would be able to cover. However, they still need to have all period of instruction time or when school is in session covered. So if they were relying on the SRO for a period of time, they would also need to have either another SRO or an armed guardian or armed security guard there during those other periods not covered by the SRO. If it is a situation where the school resource officer drops in a few times a week, there is no scheduled time, it's just kind of like pop in if available, that's not going to meet any of this requirement.
Wonderful, thank you. Chief Pennington, you look eager to participate. Is that correct? Wonderful, that smile says yes. Could we please get some clarification on why principals are explicitly not permitted to be guardians? I understand their primary responsibility is over students. However, they are generally our most trusted personnel on site, the people with whom we have the lowest amount of turnover, and many of our administrative personnel already carry.
Sure. So an assistant administrator can certainly volunteer to be a part of the Guardian program. Your main principal or director of your school, the spirit in the bill is that individual is responsible for overall school function and oversight. And in the event there is some type of critical incident, they're going to be responsible for the unified command element in relation to either the district or school to help with recovery, resolution, getting back to business. If they are involved in the incident, they become part of the crime scene and they aren't going to be available to do any of that. So that's why it's listed in the law. However, If you don't have anyone other than the principal this year, you can certainly request that in your approved alternative application.
Thank you. Jeremy, you have already mentioned this. However, if you could provide some examples, if a school guardian has to be absent from school, how can schools be expected to cover the obligation of bell-to-bell coverage? So what are some ways they can address that gap?
So there's three options. They can address that gap with the school resource officer, and in the MOU between the police department and the LEA have something for that backup and coverage. They could have an armed guardian. They could enter into and not only have an armed guardian, but have multiple armed guardians to be able to backfill when that individual is gone. Additionally, they can have contracts with school or armed security companies for school security guards. And in those situations, also in the MOU, which is required by statute, be able to have an agreement with the security company to provide backfill for when an individual is gone.
Awesome. Thank you. In filling out the alternative application, I would like to apply for alternatives for school guardian, but there is no option to apply for that. The alternative application only has options for school safety and security director and contracts between an LEA and security company. Do I need to use a different form? I can answer this one. So that Qualtrics form that is titled the School Safety Needs Assessment Summary Form and Application for Alternatives, one of the first questions to fill out that form asks who is filling out the form. I believe the first answer choice is a school principal or administrator submitting the results of the safety needs assessment. Option 2 is a school administrator submitting the results of the needs assessment and applying for an alternative. And then option 3 is going to be an LEA admin applying for an alternative. We have built that form using skip logic. So if you are expecting to apply for an alternative that is at the school level, a reminder, 3 of those alternatives are at the school level: an alternative for school safety and security specialists, an alternative for school guardian, and an alternative for the school safety needs assessment. Those 3 alternatives are connected to those first 2 answer choices. A school principal or a school admin will you'll have to choose answer choice 1 or answer choice 2. And then when you get to the application part of that form, it will show those 3 options for school level alternatives. If you're an LEA admin looking to apply for an LEA level alternative, for example, that school safety and security director position, or the contracts between the LEA and the security company, those will pre-populate if that 3rd answer choice is chosen. I'm an LEA admin applying for an LEA level alternative. And that is built like that because if an LEA wanted to come in and apply for an LEA level alternative, we didn't want folks to have to go through all of the questions of the school safety needs assessments. So depending on what you're applying for to the state security chief and his team, you'll have to choose either the school level answer choices or the LEA level answer choices. Jason, we might ask you to raise your hand and unmute yourself. Do summer programs such as STEM programs that use school buildings, must they meet the same expectations for a normal school program? Chief Pennington, I am going to send this your way. And if you would like more information, it looks like Jason has raised his hand and is ready to share with you.
And I apologize, I was answering another question. Can you repeat that?
Yes, of course. Do summer programs such as STEM programs that use school buildings, must they also meet the same expectations for a normal school program?
So if they're qualifying as school being in session, if you're running, I guess, like a summer school program, and that's going to qualify as school in session with X number of students on campus, then you would traditionally need to comply with that if you're going to run year-round school. So I guess I'm not sure if that answers what he's asking. I don't know necessarily what he's referring to as a STEM program.
A STEM program is a more niche program for science.
Would it be year-round school though?
No, it looks like it's a summer program.
Oh, then I would say that probably doesn't qualify.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Let's see. Does an LEA need to have a formal contract with a school guardian? I'll allow Chief Pennington or Jeremy to answer that one.
So there's
Or
no,
invite. I'll invite
there's-
Jeremy or Chief Pennington, my apologies.
and I think I answered this as well in writing for somebody else. There's no formal contract requirement if you're going to go with the guardian option. That's an existing school employee, so they should already be under contract with the LEA. If you're going to go with armed security company or an SRO, there typically is some type of contract or MOU in place if they go that direction.
Wonderful, thank you. Melissa or Rhett, are we able to share these slides with folks?
Yes, we will be able to share these out for sure. Thank you.
Jeremy, can the school safety specialist be the guardian?
The school safety and security specialist, by statute, depending upon enrollment, if it is under 350 students of enrollment, then there is a built-in exception to have the school safety and security specialists be able to serve in the role of a guardian. If it is over that amount, then they would also have to apply for an alternative.
Wonderful, thank you. Rhett, I'm not sure if you're able, if you are, can you please show the slide and share your screen when it talks about liability? Awesome, thank you. And while he's doing that, if a school applies for an alternative to having an armed and trained personnel, would the LEA's school security and safety director still be required to complete the same training as the school guardian?
Yes, the school safety and security director has to complete the training program.
Awesome, thank you. What is the time frame for us to get feedback answers for any exceptions we apply for from our assessments? Jeremy?
Yes, so we are working, and I say we, the Division of State Security is working closely with the Utah School Safety Center to develop a really easy process for the applications to come from that Qualtrics form to be put into another tracking form to come over to the Division of State Security for us to be able to review those. We are hoping to have that platform ready to go by the first part of December. And so as soon as that is, as soon as that is up and going, our team will be going through every one of those applications and in writing submitting an approval or declination.
Jeremy, does the guardian have to have their weapon on them at all times?
No, the guardian, if they are in the school, the guardian has to have it on their person or it has to be kept in that biometric safe.
Would a school admin secretary who participates in the school safety team be authorized to know who the guardian is in order to advise them of a threat? Chief Pennington's actually typing that answer, so we'll go ahead and move on.
So Ashley, sorry, I'll just answer it. I didn't realize
Perfect, thank
were
you.
reading that. So they don't qualify to know, and I guess I would just like to add clarification on that statement. The guardian isn't there as a security guard. They're not intervening in anything that's not a threat to life or substantial bodily injury. So they're not going to be going and dealing with behavioral problems or student issues unless that's their role as an employee within the school. So we certainly don't want things filtering through the main office. The guardian is there in case something starts to happen and, you know, the panic alarms are sounded or whatever's happening, you know, there's chaos happening. The guardian should act how they're trained to act, but we certainly don't want somebody notifying them to go deal with essentially juvenile behavior type issues.
Our district is sharing with us that a VP, a vice principal in a junior high cannot be the guardian. This training is telling us the vice principal can be, which is correct.
As long as it's not the actual principal, any other employee outside of a teacher would qualify already, as the law states. The only exemptions are the principal and teacher. So a VP could certainly be a guardian.
I am concerned that the school guardian will not always have access to the vest. For instance, if it is an IT person, they could be in any classroom or another building and not be able to get to their vest.
So I answered this in a written context. We're not going to disclose what the guardian identifier is. However, it will be required to be on their person at all times. So I'll just leave it at that.
Jeremy or Chief Pennington, to clarify, very black and white, folks are asking to make sure if we have an SRO, we also need a guardian. Can you clarify that misunderstanding, please?
If the school has a school resource officer and the school resource officer is there 100% of the time that the school is in session, no, they would not need a guardian. However, officers are out for court. Officers are out because their family is sick. Officers are out because they go on vacation. Officers are out because of mandatory department training that they have to attend. So if in those circumstances of absence, then yes, there has to be a guardian or a guardian, another SRO, or an armed security officer to be able to fill in during that time of school being in session. So I am not aware of any school resource officer who is guaranteed to be on campus 100% of the time in any situation. If that does exist, I would love to know what agency that is. But there are a lot of obligations just from being in law enforcement that would pull officers away. So it would, like I say, if the school resource officer is 100% committed day in and day out to be there and they can guarantee that, then no. But there's a lot that would pull an SRO out.
Wonderful, thank you. Rhett, can you please tell us about the School Safety and Support Grant Program, amounts and timeline for the application?
Yeah, at this point, I can't tell you the amounts or the timeline, just that we hope to get that application out soon. We are still in conversations with the grant subcommittee, with the task force, under the task force on what that looks like. We've started developing the resources and the questions and things like that, but we really do hope to get the application out very soon. When we release that, we will have the time frame. We do want to get that data back as soon as possible because that will be important information to have. For example, the financial need across the state to share with the task force and also for them to share with policymakers. And so anyway, sorry, I can't give the exact time frame right now or the amounts. There was 50 million allocated for grants, but there was also another pot of funds that was allocated. And so the exact amount is unsure, but just know that there is funding that is coming, and we will provide all that information in the near future.
Jeremy, if a school has less than 350 students, can you help explain the alternative option?
Yeah, so the 350 enrollment is, so there's kind of two caps. The 350 enrollment is stating that if it's over that, then there cannot be an individual to serve in more than one role. And so those roles would be school safety and security specialist, school safety and security director, school guardian. And so if it's over 350, an individual cannot serve in multiple roles. If it's under 350, they would be able to. If it's under 100, then an individual, a guardian, could be a principal, could be a teacher if it's under 100 enrollment.
What is the policy on the guardian if they put in PTO? We've already established that they are required to have a backup and a substitute. However, this ties into a few other questions. To summarize a few different questions, folks are asking, yes, we have a guardian, but we also sounds like we need a backup guardian. Will both need to be trained in the guardian program? Will both have access to a vest? Is there a limit to how many vests each school or LEA can have? And then will both of those individuals or the multiple individuals at each school all receive their own separate stipend?
Yeah, Ashley, so that's correct. The Guardian program is for each individual. So each individual that successfully completes the training requirements will get their own stipend. They also will receive their own vest or identifier. If more people enter the program, that will continue. So if you have 4, 5, 6 guardians, they all will get that same stipend and identifier issued to them.
Wonderful. Thank you. Will guardians be wearing bulletproof vests?
That is not how the program is designed. No, I guess if they could do it concealably without exposing themselves to who they are, I guess they could certainly fund that themselves, or their employer could fund it, but that is not something that's being provided.
If there's not a location in our building that won't be noticed if we install a gun safe accessible to the guardian, do you have any suggestions on what to do?
Well, first of all, there's no requirement to have a safe. The guardian can keep their gun on their person at all times. If the school wants to provide a safe, or the guardian wants to put a safe in their office space, desk, whatever, I would encourage that to be a joint level decision with the principal and facility people, whoever that's going to be, to find an appropriate location, but there's no requirement to have the safe.
What kind of legal liability protection is offered or available for the school guardians from the state level?
So the legal protection is already laid out in the law. You're welcome to go read that in 5322-105.
What happens if we do not have a school guardian appointed by the start of the school year 2025-2026?
Well, we would hope that there would be an alternative for that. But there are, as far as the actual consequences and things like that, that is being discussed at the task force level and could potentially be laid out in legislation.
Wonderful. Is there a link to the alternative form? Yes, the alternative form, so the application for alternatives is embedded in the school safety needs assessment summary form. So the full title of that Qualtrics form is 2025 School Safety Needs Assessment Summary Form and Application for Alternatives. If you are a school safety and security specialist, you have been invited to join our FY25 School Safety and Security Specialist Canvas course. In that Canvas course, if you navigate to resources, the resources module, there is a link and supplemental resources. So we've made a school guide and an LEA guide to fill out and complete that Qualtrics form. If you are not a school safety and security specialist, check with them. I would suggest that you check with them at your school level. They are the ones that will be completing that school safety needs assessment with the county security chief, and they are expected to work with the building principal to not only report the summary of those results, but then also complete and continue that form with the application for alternatives. Willie, I have a question for you if you're ready. Are we able to amend the school safety needs assessment summary form and application for alternatives based on today's information?
And I'm not sure where that question is because it's been moving around a bit, but yes, you can amend your already submitted school safety needs assessment summary form and application for alternatives. If you could just send that request to me through the school safety program's email, we'll get that retake link for you and you can edit your responses as needed.
Wonderful. I'm seeing that question a few times. So if anyone needs to amend the school safety needs assessment summary form and or amend an application or maybe submit an application, yes, as exactly what Willie said, go ahead and send an email. And Willie, you said you can get them a new link. Is that correct?
They'll just be their old response, but then they can edit it. That way you don't have to restart the whole form all over again.
Perfect. We are at 3:25, so we'll take a few questions. We'll get through as many as possible. Can the school safety specialist go through the training? I'm assuming the guardian training in the event of a need to fill in the role if it's needed ASAP due to people leaving, medical needs, etc.
Sorry, Ashley, can you repeat that, please?
Yes. Can the school safety and security specialist go through the guardian training so they could fill the role as backup to a guardian who may be out of the school?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say it again. The application for alternative can definitely be there. The school safety and security specialist could fill in the role of a school guardian if that is what is decided for what they want to apply for an alternative. So this question would not change that. If they wanted to have a school safety and security specialist go through the training program as a guardian and be able to have them on backfill essentially for coverage when needed, that could most definitely fit into an alternative that is not listed in statute, and so they could apply for that, and we would review that at that time.
Jeremy, regarding some alternatives, and it's up to you if how many examples you want to share, but what would alternatives look like? What are some examples that you and your team would like to see in those applications?
They can be a variety. So say you have, one that has come up, and I'm not saying that we would approve these. I'm not giving a blanket approval by stating these. I'm just saying these are some examples that have been brought up where we have told people, it sounds like you have an articulable case, go ahead and apply for an alternative. But say you have a single campus charter with a school safety and security director and a school safety and security specialist, and then and it's being the same person, right? So you have a school safety and security director, and then you have the school safety and security specialist, and that individual has specific training in military related things or law enforcement related things, and they wanted to volunteer to be a guardian. Those would be, and the enrollment's above 350. Those situations would be able to be looked at and say, okay, they have an articulable need. This individual has specialized training. This individual brings a lot to the table in that position. So they could apply for an alternative that typically would not be allowed based upon the statute. You could have school safety and security specialists who want to be the guardian. And if those individuals are not teachers or they're not the principal, and obviously a school safety and security specialist can't be the principal, but if you have a school safety and security specialist who's not a teacher that wants to be a guardian, that would be a basis for an application for an alternative.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're going to take one more and then I'll turn it back to Chantel and Rhett to wrap things up today. Regarding the Qualtrics form and the application for alternative and needs assessment summary form, we are a one school charter. I understand that that is a lot of charters throughout our state. Does that mean we need to fill out the form twice, once as an LEA and once as a school, so we get all of the questions? Yes. However, you will have to fill it out in that school lens to get the questions about the school safety needs assessment summary. So we will look at your charter as a school in that case and submitting that form as the school and any school level alternatives that you want to apply for. And then the only other reason to submit the form a second time at the LEA level is if you are interested in applying for alternatives at the LEA level. And that would be the school safety and security director, and that would be the contracts between the LEA and an armed security company. So you won't have to fill out all of the school safety information more than once. That will be in the school side of things. That LEA level submission will just be an application for those two alternatives. Thank you so much for all of your questions. We did not get to a handful. We got through as many as possible. Rhett and Chantel, I will turn it back to you.
Thanks, Ashley. I would just like to thank everyone for joining us. We appreciate your thoughtfulness to all of these really important items with school safety. And we'll be looking back for additional questions that maybe we didn't get through. And feel free again to reach out to us at that general school safety email. And we are happy to meet with you individually as well if you have any additional questions. We will plan on hosting additional town halls if that's useful for all of you to come back with your questions. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.